I saw the video by accident. I wasn't supposed to see it. Hell, no one was supposed to see it. It was buried in a friend's private story, tucked away behind laughs, champagne flutes, and glittery Vegas lights. A 1-second slip. A moment too long. Her hand in his. Her mouth on his. And then black screen. I stared at my phone like it had just punched me in the face. My wife was supposed to be in Las Vegas for her best friend Madison's bachelorette party. Just the girls, she said. Spa day, mimosas, dancing, and matching pajamas. She even sent pictures the first night. Nothing seemed off. Pink robes. Hotel selfies. A fancy dinner. I wished her fun. Told her I missed her. I didn't know I was saying goodbye to the woman I thought I married. The video came from Mark of all people. My buddy's girlfriend was also at the party, friends with Madison, and she had shared clips on her private story. Mark screen recorded a few because one of the girls got so wasted she tried to marry a street performer dressed as Elvis. We were laughing about it on his couch, a couple of beers in, when that last clip played. We both went quiet. My wife. My goddamn wife. Wearing the same black dress I helped zip up 2 nights before. Pressed against a guy I'd never seen before, his hands wrapped around her waist like they'd done it 100 times. I couldn't speak. I couldn't blink. My ears started ringing. Mark looked at me horrified. Dude, I didn't know she was in this one. I said nothing. I just stood up, walked out, and drove home in silence. The steering wheel blurred through tears. I didn't even realize I was crying. This wasn't just a kiss. It was betrayal in high definition. We'd been married for 4 years. Together for 7. We had plans. Mortgage payments. A dog. Sunday morning routines with pancakes and crime shows. I believed in us. I believed in her. But now I was sitting in the dark of our kitchen replaying that 6-second video until my phone died. It didn't lie. It didn't exaggerate. She cheated. In Vegas. During a goddamn bachelorette weekend. And the worst part? She smiled in the video. A real smile. The kind she hadn't given me in months. I didn't confront her right away. I couldn't. I needed time to breathe, to think, to stop myself from exploding. I knew that if I said something in the heat of that moment, I'd either scream or sob, and neither of those reactions felt like they would bring me clarity. So I waited. I waited for her to come home, pretending everything was fine, playing the role of the clueless husband while my insides twisted and burned like a slow, endless fire. Every hour felt like a lie, every breath a betrayal I had to swallow just to keep from falling apart. I cleaned the house just to distract myself, picked up the dog's toys, folded laundry she had left behind, even lit a candle like she always does when she wants the place to feel cozy. Cozy? What a joke. Nothing felt cozy anymore. Everything felt cold, sterile, and fake. She walked in on Sunday evening with that same Vegas glow I used to find charming. Her makeup was perfect. Her eyes bright. Her laugh effortless. She tossed her bag on the couch, kicked off her shoes, and hugged me like she missed me. I hugged her back like I was trying to remember who the hell she really was. She smelled like vanilla and perfume. Her hair still carried the faint scent of some hotel conditioner. She started telling me about the trip, the spa, the rooftop bar, the matching swimsuits, how Madison cried when they gave her a scrapbook of their memories. I nodded, smiled where I had to, asked just enough questions to keep the charade going. But inside I was screaming. Dying. Bleeding. That night, when she showered, I sat outside the bathroom door and listened to the water run, wondering how she could come home and act like nothing happened. How she could joke about how crazy Vegas was, about all the drunk people on the strip, while hiding the fact that she became one of them. I kept picturing that man's hands on her, the way she leaned into him like she belonged there, like I didn't even exist. I felt invisible. I felt like a fool. She slid into bed beside me like everything was normal. Kissed my shoulder. Said she missed me. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling and relived every frame of that video over and over again until I wanted to scream. But I didn't. Not yet. I needed to know more. I needed to be sure I wasn't losing my mind. I needed proof. Not just of the act, but of the intent. I needed to know if it was just a drunken mistake or something worse. Something deeper. Something that had been brewing long before she boarded that plane to Vegas. So I made a decision. I was going to find out everything. The next morning, I woke up with a mission. While she made coffee like she always did, humming to herself, scrolling through her phone, I studied her like a stranger. I watched the way she smiled at something on her screen, how she tucked her hair behind her ear, how she acted like the woman I married hadn't just died in a Vegas hotel room. I wanted to hate her, but all I could feel was this hollow ache, like someone had scooped out my chest and left me walking around with an echo where my heart used to be. Still, I played along. Kissed her cheek. Said I might work late. She kissed me back. Told me she loved me. And I wondered if she even knew what those words meant anymore. That day, I started digging. First, I checked our shared iCloud account. She wasn't great with technology, and I knew she had synced her photos before. Most of what I found were harmless dinners, poolside selfies, some clips of the girls dancing, but there were gaps. Whole chunks of time missing. Night 2 and 3 especially. I opened her laptop next, and with a password she hadn't changed in years, our anniversary, how ironic, I got in. Her messages were mostly clean. But then I found her email. One thread stood out. It was from someone named R. Just an initial. The subject line read, "See you soon." My blood ran cold. The exchange was short but damning. "Can't wait to finally meet in person," winking face. And her reply, "Me too." One wild weekend, then back to reality. No name. No photos. But it was enough. She planned this. It wasn't a random kiss. It wasn't a drunken mistake. It was premeditated. Coordinated. She had been talking to him before the trip. Long enough to build trust. Long enough to build tension. And then she flew out to Vegas and acted it out while I stayed home like an idiot, taking the dog for walks and waiting for her texts. I felt sick. Betrayal wasn't even the right word anymore. It was annihilation. It was a kind of death I didn't know I could feel while still breathing. That night, I didn't say a word. I couldn't. I just sat across from her at dinner and watched her laugh at a cooking show like she wasn't living a double life. I imagined flipping the table, screaming the truth, showing her the emails. But something in me said, not yet. It at all. Make her choke on it. So I kept digging. And what I found next broke me in a way I never thought possible. It was her old phone that gave me the rest of the puzzle. She'd recently upgraded, but like most people, she hadn't bothered to wipe the old one. It was in her nightstand drawer, buried under old receipts, a dried-up mascara tube, and a tangle of forgotten charger cords. I don't know what made me open that drawer. Maybe it was instinct. Maybe it was pure desperation. But the second I powered it on, I felt something shift inside me. Her old password still worked, my name and the year we met. And just like that, I was in. Messages. Photos. Notes. A graveyard of secrets waiting to be uncovered. What I found wasn't just confirmation, it was a full confession. There were texts to Madison, the bride-to-be, detailing plans that went far beyond Bachelorette decorations and drink menus. One message hit like a bullet straight to the chest. "Don't judge, but I matched with someone local just for fun. He's hot and I need a little something wild before I settle into married life forever." Madison replied with laughing emojis and a "YLO, bitch," like it was nothing. Like breaking your husband's heart was just a quirky vacation memory. I scrolled further. There were flirty screenshots of her conversations with R. His real name was Ryan. Local to Vegas. Early 30s. Tattooed. Personal trainer. She sent him selfies. Some I recognized. Others were taken when I thought she was asleep next to me. She told him things I hadn't heard in months. That she felt trapped. That her husband didn't make her feel alive anymore. That she wanted to be bad for once. And Ryan, that piece of shit, ate it up. Promised her nights she'd never forget. Told her she deserved more. Called her baby. I dropped the phone. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I felt the weight of it all crush down on me. She didn't just cheat, she erased me. Diminished me into nothing behind my back with some stranger who promised her excitement. And she smiled while doing it. Smiled in every photo. Smiled in every text. I felt like a joke. Like the safe choice who had become the boring background to a life she was already auditioning to leave. This wasn't one mistake. It was a campaign of deceit. A planned, conscious, gleeful betrayal. I didn't sleep that night. I couldn't even lie in the same bed. I stayed on the couch, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do with this truth. Divorce? Confrontation? Revenge? My hands itched with rage. My throat burned with everything I wanted to scream at her. But still, I waited. Something in me needed her to look me in the eye. To admit it. To say the words. I wanted to see her face crack. I wanted to watch her world collapse the way she so casually detonated mine. And the opportunity came faster than I expected. Because 2 days later, Ryan texted her again. And I was the one who replied. I don't know what came over me when I picked up her phone and saw his name flash across the screen, but in that moment, I wasn't her husband, I was a man betrayed, burned, and done playing nice. The message was simple, still thinking about that night. Can't stop replaying it. When can I see you again? My chest tightened as I stared at it. The audacity. The casualness. Like they hadn't destroyed something sacred. My hands were trembling, but I typed back with a calm I didn't feel. Soon. Let's talk more later. I'm alone right now. I hit send and waited, heart pounding like a war drum. And just like that he responded. Instantly. Eager. Desperate. Miss your body. Miss that mouth? Don't make me wait too long, baby. My jaw clenched so hard I thought my teeth might crack. I locked her phone and sat there, gripping it like it might explode. So this was it. This was what our marriage had come to, dirty texts from a stranger who knew her body better than he knew her last name. I didn't want to cry anymore. I was past that. I was in the eye of the storm now. Cold. Calculated. Ready. I had all the proof I needed. But I still needed her to admit it. To look at me and lie or tell the truth and watch everything she built come crashing down. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to throw things. No. I was going to give her one chance to be human again. That evening I made dinner. Her favorite, roast chicken, mashed potatoes, garlic green beans. The kind of meal I made when I wanted to show love. She came home, kissed me, smiled. Sat down at the table like we were just another happy couple in a normal house. I watched her eat, fork scraping the plate, her phone beside her like a grenade waiting to go off. I poured wine. I talked about my day. And then, just as she reached for her phone to check a notification, I said it. Who's Ryan? She froze. It was immediate. A full-body jolt like someone hit pause on her nervous system. Her fingers hovered above the phone, eyes still fixed on the screen, face draining of color. I didn't blink. I didn't move. I wanted her to stew in that silence. Finally, she looked up at me, wide-eyed. What? I leaned forward. Ryan. The guy you've been texting. The one you met in Vegas. The one you kissed. The one you slept with. Her fork clattered to the plate. The room went dead quiet. For a second, she didn't speak. And then she said the worst thing she could have possibly said. It didn't mean anything. Those words. That phrase. Like it was supposed to soften the blow. As if reducing the betrayal to meaninglessness made it any less sharp. Any less real. I felt something inside me snap, not violently, but permanently. She started to cry, reaching for my hand, swearing it was a mistake, that she was drunk, that she felt confused and lost and wanted to feel alive. I pulled my hand back. Slowly. Deliberately. You killed us, I said quietly. And you did it for a weekend thrill. She sobbed. Tried to explain. Blamed the stress of life, our routines, how she felt unseen. But nothing landed. Nothing stuck. Because none of it justified choosing a stranger over the man who would have walked through fire for her. I stood up. Walked to the bedroom. Pulled out the bag I had already packed. I didn't slam doors. I didn't yell. I just left. And I didn't look back. The first night away from home was the strangest silence I'd ever known. I checked into a modest hotel a few miles from our house, one I'd passed 100 times without ever thinking I'd sleep there alone, heart shattered, soul bruised beyond recognition. I sat on the bed, stared at the beige walls, the impersonal lamps, the stiff chair in the corner, and felt like I had fallen out of my own life. My phone buzzed over and over, her name lighting up the screen like a warning flare. I didn't answer. I couldn't. She texted, called, begged. Voice messages full of tears and regret. She kept repeating one word like a broken record, mistake. As if betrayal could be washed away by repetition. As if planning to cheat, flirting for weeks, meeting in secret, sleeping with someone else, that entire sequence of actions could somehow be grouped under a single drunken lapse in judgment. But I wasn't buying it. I couldn't. Not anymore. The second night was worse. I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing images I never witnessed but that my mind created anyway, her in bed with him, laughing the way she used to laugh with me, whispering lies that once belonged to us. I hated that my memory had been hijacked by a stranger's touch. Every beautiful moment we'd ever shared was now laced with poison. I questioned everything. Every I love you, every hug, every night she said she was tired and turned away from me in bed. Was she already gone back then? Already fantasizing about something or someone else? That was the most agonizing part. The not knowing how long the rot had been growing beneath the surface. I had been building a future with someone who had already started burning the blueprint. I took a leave from work. I couldn't concentrate. I couldn't pretend. I told my boss it was a personal emergency, and he didn't ask questions. Just offered support and said to take the time I needed. I appreciated that. It was the first time in days I felt like someone saw me without conditions. Meanwhile, she kept trying. Emails. Long paragraphs filled with apologies, declarations of love, and promises to go to therapy, to fight for us, to be better. She offered transparency, counseling, even begged me to just talk to her in person. And for a while, I considered it. I really did. Because when you've built a life with someone, Even after betrayal, the instinct is to salvage, to repair, to see if anything can be saved from the wreckage. But the more I sat with the truth, the more I realized something deeply painful yet necessary. It wasn't just that she cheated. It was that she stopped choosing me. Quietly, gradually, and then suddenly with a stranger in Las Vegas. That choice to betray me when I wasn't looking revealed something permanent, something irreversible. She had crossed a line that no apology could unwrite, and I had to decide if I could live with that, or walk away from it forever. By the fourth day, something inside me shifted. The raw pain had started to settle. Not into acceptance, not yet, but into something sharper, more focused. Anger. Not the explosive, chaotic kind, but a deep, measured rage that made things suddenly brutally clear. I realized I had spent too long mourning someone who had walked away from me before I even knew we were in trouble. And that clarity came not in a scream or a breakdown, but in silence. Standing in front of the bathroom mirror in that dull hotel room, staring at a face I barely recognized. My eyes were hollow, my jaw clenched. I had aged in just a few days. Betrayal does that. It carves years out of you, takes pieces you didn't even know were vulnerable. I went home, not to forgive, not to forget, but to face it head on. When I walked through the door, she was sitting on the couch, knees tucked under her, face pale and blotchy. She looked like a ghost of herself. Makeup smeared, hair messy, her phone clutched in both hands like a lifeline. When she saw me, she stood up fast, mouth opening as if to rush toward me, but I held up a hand. She stopped mid-step. I could see the apology already forming in her throat. I didn't want to hear it. Not yet. I sat down at the dining table, our dining table where we had shared 1,000 meals, 100 holidays, and now this. I read everything, I said, voice low but steady. The texts, the emails, the conversations with Madison. I saw the video. I know all of it. She didn't deny it. Her shoulders slumped like the truth had finally crushed the last of her excuses. She began crying again, softly this time, hands shaking as she sat across from me. I don't know who I became, she whispered. I was lost. I was selfish. I thought it was just a fling, just something stupid. But now I realize how much I ruined. I looked at her for a long time. This woman I once trusted with my whole life, now reduced to someone I barely recognized. It wasn't just a fling, I said quietly. It was a decision, repeatedly, over and over. You chose him. You chose the thrill. And you lied to my face every step of the way. She didn't argue, didn't defend. She just cried harder, covering her mouth like the weight of it all had finally crashed through. And maybe it had. But I didn't feel vindicated. There was no triumph in her breakdown. Only a deep, aching sadness that this was the end of our story. Not with a blowout fight, not with flames and fury, but with a quiet, crushing collapse of everything we'd built. I'm filing, I said finally. I don't hate you. I just can't do this anymore. I can't unsee it. I can't unknow it. And I won't spend the rest of my life wondering if the next trip, the next night out, will be the next betrayal. She didn't beg. Maybe she knew it was over. Maybe a part of her had already left long ago. She nodded, eyes glassy, mouth trembling. And in that moment, for the first time since I discovered the truth, I felt something close to peace. Not healing, not yet, but the beginning of it. The days that followed were strange, suspended somewhere between mourning and rebirth. I stayed at a friend's place while I got the paperwork together. Divorce attorneys, financial statements, all the cold, clinical steps required to legally dissolve what was once a promise whispered under an altar. Every signature felt like a funeral. Every line filled in was a quiet farewell to a version of myself I couldn't return to. And still, a part of me wanted to call her. Not to reconcile, not to forgive, but to ask why over and over again like some pathetic mantra. Why wasn't I enough? Why wasn't her life enough? Why did she throw away years for a weekend? But I knew the answers wouldn't matter. Even if she found the perfect words, they couldn't reach me where I now existed on the other side of something permanently broken. The house felt like a crime scene when I returned to pack up my things. She wasn't there. We'd agreed on different times to avoid confrontation, but her presence lingered everywhere. The scent of her perfume still clung to the hallway. Her shoes were lined up neatly by the door like nothing had changed. But everything had. I moved like a ghost, boxing up clothes, grabbing books, sorting through drawers. I found our wedding photo tucked in the back of a cabinet, forgotten or maybe intentionally hidden. I stared at it for a long time. We looked happy, radiant, stupidly in love. I wanted to hate that photo, tear it in half, burn it, but I didn't. I placed it carefully in a box labeled Memories. Not out of sentiment, but because some wounds deserve to be kept if only as a reminder of who you'll never be again. Friends reached out. Some knew. Some had only heard whispers. A few offered support, beers, distraction. Others tiptoed around the topic, unsure of how to console someone hollowed out by betrayal. I appreciated the kindness even if I couldn't fully accept it yet. I wasn't ready to laugh. I wasn't ready to move on. I was still bleeding, just more quietly now. The kind of bleeding that happens inside where no one can see it but it seeps into everything. Sleep was a mess. My appetite disappeared. But somewhere in all that stillness I found flickers of clarity. Tiny moments that reminded me I was still here. Still breathing. Still capable of healing. And then, one morning, as I sipped bitter coffee in a new apartment that didn't yet feel like home, I got another message from her. Not a plea. Not a desperate confession. Just 5 words. I'll always love you. Sorry. I stared at it for a long time. Read it again. And again. And then, slowly, I deleted it. Because some stories don't need replies. It took weeks before I could walk past certain places without feeling like my lungs were filling with concrete. The coffee shop where we had our first date. The park where she said yes through tears when I proposed under golden October leaves. The little Italian place we made our Friday night ritual. For a long time, those spots felt haunted, still holding echoes of her laughter, the soft way she used to touch my hand across the table, the little inside jokes only we shared. I avoided them at first. Drove longer routes, made excuses, looked away. But grief has a way of forcing confrontation. You can only run for so long before your own mind catches up. So one Saturday, I went back to the park. Alone. It was a gray day, overcast and humid, the kind of weather that made the trees hang heavy with memory. I sat on the same bench where I had once knelt with a ring in hand, heart pounding, terrified and in love. Now, I sat with my hands in my lap, empty, staring at the place where she had cried tears of joy. I thought I might cry too. But instead, I just breathed. Deep, heavy breaths. And it hit me, not a wave of sadness, but something more sobering. That moment hadn't been a lie. She had loved me. I believed that. Maybe not forever, maybe not faithfully, but at some point, it was real. And that was the hardest pill to swallow. That love doesn't always end with hatred. Sometimes it just decays. Quietly. Without fanfare. Until one person goes looking for oxygen somewhere else. I stayed on that bench for a long time. I let the silence wrap around me. I let the memories come and go. And when I finally stood up, I didn't feel healed. But I felt a sliver of distance. Like the weight I'd been dragging behind me had shrunk just enough to take another step forward. That was all I needed. A step. The next few weeks were less dramatic. No explosive breakthroughs. No grand epiphanies. Just small wins. I unpacked my last box. Cooked a meal from scratch. Really laughed at something stupid on TV. I deleted our shared playlists. Removed old photos from my lock screen. I didn't rush it. I let it be messy. Healing never looks like a movie montage. It's clumsy. Slow. Full of setbacks. But it's real. And little by little, I started recognizing myself again, not as the man I was before her, but as someone new. Wiser. Sharper. Still broken in places, but learning how to live with the cracks. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like a victim. I felt like a survivor. They say time heals, but they rarely tell you what that actually looks like. It doesn't come with a calendar date or a switch you can flip. It comes in fragments, through the quiet of a morning when you realize you didn't think of them first thing. Through the soft victory of sleeping through the night without waking from some dream where they still belong to you. Healing is slow. Uneven. Sometimes you take 3 steps forward only to fall 5 back. But with enough time, something strange and powerful happens. The pain dulls. The memories lose their sharp edges. And you begin to reclaim yourself, not the version they knew, but the version you were always meant to become without them. I finalized the divorce 6 months after that night at the dinner table. The last time I saw her was in a conference room under the cold buzz of fluorescent lights, with attorneys between us like diplomats at a peace negotiation. She looked thinner. Tired. Her eyes searched mine like they were looking for something that had long since vanished. I didn't smile. I didn't rage. I was polite. detached, free. When the papers were signed, she hesitated before leaving. I thought she might say something, one last attempt to undo what couldn't be undone, but she didn't. She just nodded once, a silent gesture of goodbye, and walked out of my life for good. In the months that followed, I built something new. A space that was mine. A routine that wasn't laced with anxiety or doubt. I went to therapy. Picked up running. Reconnected with old friends I had unintentionally pushed away during the fog of marriage. And slowly, I began to believe in trust again, not in others just yet, but in myself. In my instincts. In my ability to survive something that once felt like it might kill me. I still think about her sometimes. Not with longing, but with clarity. She was a chapter. A lesson. A storm I had to weather to find my own foundation. I don't hate her. I don't wish her pain. But I also don't excuse what she did. Her choices hurt me in ways I'll carry for the rest of my life. But they also forced me to grow. To see myself in a raw, unfiltered light. And in that wreckage, I found someone I can be proud of. This story isn't about revenge. It's not even really about her. It's about what betrayal does to a heart and what strength it takes to stitch that heart back together. And now, when I look in the mirror, I don't see the man she cheated on. I see the man who survived it.